What if I told you that some gods weren't just worshipped, but feared, that there were divine beings so powerful, so merciless, that their very names struck terror into the hearts of both mortals and immortals alike? These gods weren't the kind to grant blessings or answer prayers with kindness. No, these were the gods of wrath, destruction, and chaos. They didn't just watch over humanity. They punished, annihilated, and in some cases, nearly wiped out entire civilizations. Imagine a god whose mere gaze could turn everything to ash, or a war god who thrived on bloodshed, growing stronger with every battle. Some of these beings were so uncontrollable that even other gods feared them. This isn't mythology as you know it. This is the darkest side of divine power. Throughout history, different cultures have revered gods not just for their wisdom and benevolence, but for their unmatched capacity for destruction. Take Shiva the Destroyer, a god so powerful that when he dances, it signifies the end of the universe. Or Kali, the goddess of death and time, who once went into such an uncontrollable rage that she nearly destroyed everything in her path. Then there's Hades, the Greek god of the underworld, who rules over the dead and ensures that no soul ever escapes his domain. And what about Sekhmet, the Egyptian goddess of war and plague, whose bloodlust was so insatiable that she nearly wiped out all of humanity, only stopping when she was tricked into drinking beer disguised as blood? Finally, we can't forget Ares, the Greek god of war, who didn't just wage war, he lived for it, bathed in the blood of fallen warriors and delighted in pure chaos. These gods weren't just deities, they were nightmares given form. Today, we dive into the myths, the wrath, and the unimaginable power of the 5 deadliest gods in history. What made them so feared? What horrors did they unleash upon the world? And most importantly, who among them was the most terrifying of all? Stick around, because this is a journey through the darkest corners of mythology, where gods don't protect, they destroy. Shiva, one of the most powerful and revered gods in Hindu mythology, is not just a deity of meditation and enlightenment. He is the ultimate destroyer. As part of the Trimurti, the Holy Trinity of Hinduism, alongside Brahma, the creator, and Vishnu, the preserver, Shiva's role is not to create or sustain, but to end and transform. Yet his destruction is not mindless. It is the destruction that leads to rebirth, a cycle of renewal that keeps the universe in balance. He is often depicted as a calm ascetic, deep in meditation on the icy peaks of Mount Kailash. But beneath this serene exterior lies a force so immense that when unleashed, it can reduce even gods to dust. Shiva is both the bringer of peace and the harbinger of annihilation, a duality that makes him one of the most formidable deities in history. But what truly sets Shiva apart as one of the most deadly gods in mythology is his third eye. Unlike his 2 normal eyes, which perceive the world as it is, his third eye is a symbol of higher wisdom and cosmic power, and when it opens, it does not simply see, it destroys. Legends tell of the time when Kamadeva, the god of love, dared to disturb Shiva's meditation. Kamadev, tasked with igniting passion in Shiva's heart, aimed his arrows of desire at the meditating god. But instead of falling in love, Shiva's third eye snapped open in fury, unleashing a burst of fire so intense that Kamadeva was instantly reduced to ashes. This wasn't an isolated event. Anything that dares to provoke Shiva's wrath risks complete and utter obliteration. His power is absolute, unforgiving, and irreversible. Perhaps the most terrifying aspect of Shiva is his Tandava dance. This is not just any dance. It is the cosmic dance of destruction, a performance that signals the end of an era. When Shiva dances the Tandava, it is said that the universe itself trembles, for his movements dictate the dissolution of creation. His rhythmic steps shake the cosmos, his hands destroy and reshape reality, and the world as it is known ceases to exist. This is not the destruction of a single city or civilization. This is total cosmic annihilation, a reset button on existence itself. And that is why Shiva is feared. His power is not limited to the mortal realm or even the divine realm. It transcends time, space, and reality. He is the balance between life and death, peace and destruction, creation and oblivion. He does not seek war, yet if provoked, his fury is unstoppable. If he opens his third eye in anger, if he performs the Tandava in rage, everything, gods, demons, humans, and even the universe itself, will be erased in an instant. That is why Shiva is one of the deadliest gods in history. Kali, the goddess of death and time. Kali is not just a goddess, she is a force of nature, a terrifying embodiment of death, time, and destruction. Revered and feared in equal measure, she is the most ferocious form of the divine feminine in Hindu mythology. Unlike other goddesses, who are often portrayed as nurturing and compassionate, Kali is a raging storm, a being of chaos and annihilation whose very presence can strike terror into the hearts of mortals and gods alike. Her name itself comes from the Sanskrit word kala, meaning time. And time, as we all know, is the one force that destroys everything. Kali's appearance is as horrifying as her reputation. She is often depicted with wild, unkempt hair, burning red eyes, and a blood-stained tongue, symbolizing her insatiable hunger for destruction. Around her neck, she wears a gruesome necklace of severed heads, each representing a defeated enemy or an aspect of the ego she has vanquished. Her skirt is made of severed human arms, signifying the total submission of those who stand against her. She carries a bloody sword and a severed head, both dripping with fresh gore, and her entire body is smeared with the blood of her enemies. Unlike other gods who seek balance and order, Kali thrives in the chaos of battle, and when she enters the fray, nothing is left standing in her wake. Kali is known as the destroyer of evil, a relentless force that annihilates demons and darkness wherever she finds them. But there is one myth that truly showcases just how deadly and uncontrollable she can be. In an epic battle between the gods and the demonic forces, Kali was summoned to defeat a powerful demon army that no other deity could stop. As soon as she appeared on the battlefield, the entire atmosphere changed. The ground trembled beneath her feet, the skies darkened, and an eerie silence fell before the storm of destruction. With a fearsome war cry, Kali launched herself into battle, slicing through demons with unmatched ferocity. No force could withstand her. One by one, the demons fell, their bodies torn apart, their blood staining the earth. But the more she killed, the more unstoppable she became. Her battle rage intensified with every drop of blood spilled, and soon, Kali lost all sense of control. She was no longer just killing demons, she had become a whirlwind of destruction, attacking anything and everything in sight. Even the gods began to fear her. The battlefield, once filled with enemy warriors, became a sea of corpses and rivers of blood. But Kali did not stop. Her rage knew no limits, and even those fighting on her side became victims of her rampage. She was no longer a divine warrior, she was a force of death itself. The gods watched in horror as they realized Kali would not stop until there was nothing left to destroy. The gods, terrified by what they had unleashed, begged Shiva to intervene. Shiva, known for his immense power and wisdom, realized that Kali had become too dangerous, even for the gods. But there was no weapon, no force in existence that could stop her. She was beyond reason, beyond control. The only way to break her trance of destruction was to shock her out of it. And so Shiva did something unthinkable. He walked onto the battlefield and lay down motionless beneath her feet. The moment Kali stepped on him, she suddenly realized what she had done. Her blood-red eyes widened, her breath caught in her throat. She, the goddess of death, had just trampled upon the very god she loved. The shock of this realization was so great that Kali's rage immediately subsided. She stuck out her tongue in embarrassment, and in that instant, her battle frenzy ended. This moment is one of the most powerful symbols in Hindu mythology. It represents the idea that even the most uncontrollable force of destruction can be tamed by self-awareness. The image of Kali standing on Shiva's chest, her tongue hanging out, is now one of the most famous and sacred depictions of her in Hindu culture. There's no god or demon that does not fear Kali when she loses control. Unlike other deities who maintain a sense of divine order, Kali exists beyond all rules. She is pure destruction, raw power, and untamed chaos. Even though she is revered as a protector and a slayer of evil, her ability to lose herself in rage makes her one of the most terrifying beings in all of mythology. But Kali is feared not only for her uncontrollable wrath, she is also the goddess of time. And what is more terrifying than time itself? Time does not stop, time does not forgive, time takes everything and everyone. Just as she slaughters demons without hesitation, she devours everything in existence. Kings, empires, civilizations all eventually fall before her. No one escapes Kali's embrace. Many of her devotees worship her in awe and terror, believing that surrendering to her can free them from fear itself. Her followers see her as the destroyer of the ego, the force that removes attachment, illusion, and weakness. To them, Kali is not evil, she is necessary. She represents the inescapable reality of death, the truth that everything must come to an end. If Shiva represents controlled destruction, Kali represents uncontrollable annihilation. She is the fire that consumes without limit, the force that kills without question. If angered, there is no stopping her. The gods themselves fear summoning her power, knowing that once unleashed, even they might not survive her wrath. So, what makes Kali one of the deadliest gods in history? It's not just her ability to destroy demons or armies, it's the fact that nothing is beyond her reach. Gods, mortals, the past, the present, the future, everything is her domain. She is the unstoppable force, the eternal void, the shadow that looms over all creation. And in the end, whether we fear her or worship her, we all belong to her. Because time spares no one, and Kali is time itself. Hades, the lord of the underworld. Hades, the ruler of the underworld, is one of the most misunderstood gods in Greek mythology. Unlike Zeus, who commands the skies with thunder, or Poseidon, who controls the raging seas, Hades reigns over something far more absolute, death itself. While he does not seek war, nor does he revel in destruction like Ares, his power is inescapable, eternal, and absolute. He is not a god that men pray to for blessings. He is a god that they fear meeting, for once a soul enters his domain, there is no returning to the land of the living. Many people mistakenly associate Hades with evil, often confusing him with the Christian devil. But the truth is far more complex. Hades is not a malicious god. He does not punish souls for fun, nor does he bring suffering without cause. He is simply the inevitable fate that awaits all mortals. His rule is impartial, his judgments are final, and his kingdom is inescapable. Yet despite his neutral nature, he is still one of the deadliest gods in history. Not because he seeks war, but because no one escapes him. Even the gods themselves must tread carefully when dealing with the Lord of the Dead. One of the most infamous myths surrounding Hades is his abduction of Persephone. This event was not just the kidnapping of a goddess. It was an act that brought suffering upon the entire world. Persephone, the daughter of Demeter, the goddess of harvest and fertility, was a beautiful young maiden who loved to roam the fields and gather flowers. But one day, as she wandered alone, the ground beneath her suddenly split open, and from the depths of the earth, Hades emerged in his chariot of black horses. Before she could react, he seized her and dragged her down into the underworld. The world changed in an instant. Demeter, upon realizing her daughter was missing, fell into deep despair. She searched every corner of the earth, refusing to let the crops grow, refusing to let the trees bear fruit. Without Persephone, the world became a barren wasteland, a land of eternal winter. Zeus, realizing that humanity would not survive if Demeter continued her mourning, was forced to intervene. He sent Hermes to the underworld to negotiate Persephone's return, but Hades had a devious trick up his sleeve. Before letting Persephone go, he gave her a single pomegranate seed to eat. What she didn't realize was that anyone who eats food in the underworld is bound to it forever. Though she was allowed to return to the surface, she was now cursed to spend half of the year with Hades in the underworld. This myth explains the changing of the seasons. When Persephone is in the underworld, Demeter mourns and winter covers the land. When she returns, spring and summer bring life back to the world. But no matter what, Persephone always returns to Hades. He had outwitted even the gods, ensuring that his captive could never truly escape. Hades may not be as famous for combat as Ares or Zeus, but he wields one of the most terrifying artifacts in all of mythology, the Helm of Darkness. This helm, a gift from the Cyclopes during the Titanomachy, the war between the Titans and the Olympians, granted Hades the ability to become completely invisible. But this wasn't just physical invisibility, it made him undetectable by all means. With the Helm of Darkness, Hades could move unseen through battlefields, cities, and even the realm of the gods. He could not be touched, sensed, or fought. In battle, this made him unstoppable. His enemies would never see him coming. During the Titanomachy, Hades used the helm to infiltrate enemy lines, assassinate key opponents, and strike fear into the hearts of his enemies. Even after the war, the Helm of Darkness remained one of the most feared artifacts in the divine realm. It was said that any mortal who wore it would lose all sense of themselves, fading into the shadows until they were nothing but whispers. Even the gods feared its power, knowing that Hades could walk among them unseen at any time. Unlike Zeus, whose wrath is temporary, or Poseidon, whose storms eventually calm, Hades' power is permanent. He does not punish mortals with bolts of lightning or raging seas. He simply waits, because no matter what, everyone belongs to him in the end. When a mortal dies, their soul descends into the underworld, where it is judged and assigned a fate. Some souls go to the Elysian fields, a paradise for heroes and the virtuous. Others are sent to Tartarus, a place of eternal torment, and the rest are condemned to the Asphodel meadows, where they wander as shades, forgotten and empty. But here's the terrifying part. No one leaves the underworld. Hades does not bargain, he does not negotiate. Once a soul enters his realm, it is his forever. Even the greatest heroes in Greek mythology feared him. Orpheus, the legendary musician, tried to bring his wife Eurydice back from the dead, but in the end, he failed, and she was dragged back into the darkness. Even the mighty Hercules himself, had to enter the underworld on one of his 12 labors, and even he barely escaped with his life. The gods themselves fear Hades, not because he is stronger than them, but because he controls something they cannot. Even Zeus, the king of the gods, has no authority over the dead. Hades does not answer to him. He operates by his own rules, untouched by the petty squabbles of the Olympians. Even in the divine hierarchy, Hades remains untouchable. Hades is not a war god, not a tyrant, not a conqueror. He does not seek battle, nor does he rage like Ares or punish like Zeus, but he is deadlier than all of them. His power does not need to be shown. It is simply understood. He is the one God you will meet, no matter what. He does not chase you, because you will come to him eventually. He does not kill, because your own mortality will bring you to his doorstep. He does not fight, because there is no battle against time. Even if you are the mightiest warrior, the most brilliant strategist, or the most powerful king, Hades will claim you. In the end, every road leads to the underworld. Every breath is just a step closer to his domain. And that is why Hades is one of the deadliest gods in history, because he does not need to seek vengeance. He does not need to strike down his enemies. He simply waits. Sekhmet, the bloodthirsty war goddess. In the pantheon of Egyptian mythology, no deity embodies destruction, war, and uncontrollable rage quite like Sekhmet, the lion-headed goddess of blood and fire. She was not merely a goddess of battle. She was the very essence of war itself. Where other gods represented strategy, justice, or even divine punishment, Sekhmet was pure, unrelenting violence. Her power was not calculated or restrained. It was an unstoppable onslaught of carnage, plague, and death. Unlike many war deities, Sekhmet was not created to protect humanity. She was born from Ra's fury, a weapon of destruction meant to wipe out those who defied the gods. And yet, her bloodlust became so overwhelming that even the gods feared what they had unleashed. She was, without a doubt, one of the most terrifying divine forces in history, a goddess whose very presence could bring civilization to its knees. The story of Sekhmet's creation is one of divine rage and punishment. According to Egyptian mythology, there was a time when humanity forgot their place. They grew arrogant, rebellious, and disrespectful toward the gods. Their worship waned, and their devotion became weak. Ra, the supreme sun god, watched in fury as mortals turned away from the divine order. He was enraged by their insolence, disgusted by their lack of faith. But Ra was not a god of war. He was a god of creation, light, and kingship. His divine role was to bring order and stability, not destruction. So, rather than acting himself, he birthed Sekhmet from his own fury. She was not just a warrior goddess, she was a manifestation of his wrath, a living embodiment of divine vengeance. When Sekhmet was unleashed upon the world, she was unstoppable. She did not punish humans, she hunted them. She slaughtered villages, tore through cities, and left nothing but blood and fire in her wake. Her rage was limitless, her thirst for destruction insatiable. She was more than a warrior, she was a predator. What makes Sekhmet one of the deadliest gods in history is the fact that even the gods could not control her. Ra had sent her to punish mankind, but soon, her mission of vengeance turned into sheer bloodlust. She became addicted to killing, drinking the blood of her victims, and reveling in destruction. It was no longer about punishment, it was about pleasure. The gods watched in horror as Sekhmet's massacre spiraled out of control. What was meant to be a lesson for humanity was quickly becoming its extinction. The ground was soaked in blood and entire cities lay in ruins. It was clear that if she was not stopped, there would be no humans left. But there was one problem. No one could stop Sekhmet in battle. She was invincible, relentless, and completely beyond reason. To fight her was suicide, and to plead with her was pointless. There was only one way to stop her: deception. Realizing that nothing could overpower Sekhmet's unquenchable thirst for blood, the gods devised a desperate plan. They brewed 7,000 jars of beer and dyed it a deep red, making it indistinguishable from blood. Then, under the cover of night, they poured the crimson liquid across the land, letting it flood the battlefields where Sekhmet raged. When Sekhmet saw the rivers of what she believed was fresh human blood, she laughed in triumph. She eagerly drank it all, consuming jar after jar, believing that her massacre had reached new heights. But as she continued drinking, the alcohol took effect. Her bloodlust began to fade, her vision blurred, and her movements slowed. By the time she realized the trick, it was too late. She had drunk herself into submission. Her fury dissipated, and for the first time since her creation, she stopped killing. Her unstoppable rampage had finally come to an end. This moment marked one of the greatest turning points in mythology. Sekhmet, the goddess who had nearly annihilated humanity, was tamed not by battle, not by force, but by cleverness and trickery. The gods had succeeded in saving the world, but the lesson was clear. Sekhmet was too dangerous to be unleashed again. What makes Sekhmet truly terrifying is not just her bloodlust, but the fact that she represents both life and death. She is not just a goddess of war, she is also a goddess of healing. How could a destroyer of civilizations also be a healer? The answer lies in her duality. After being calmed and subdued, Sekhmet was no longer a mindless force of destruction. She became associated with medicine, healing, and protection. She was now seen as a guardian of the pharaohs, a protector of balance and justice. Her priests became powerful healers, using her name in rituals to cure diseases and ward off evil. But this duality is exactly why she is so feared. Unlike other gods who are either benevolent or destructive, Sekhmet is both. She can cure disease, or she can spread plague. She can protect warriors, or she can slaughter armies. She is mercy and devastation in one entity. In many ways, her power is even more terrifying than that of gods like Ares or Hades. Ares may crave war, and Hades may rule the dead, but Sekhmet decides whether you live or die. She does not just punish the wicked, she judges all of humanity. Of all the war gods in history, Sekhmet stands apart because she was never truly meant to be controlled. She was created as a weapon, a tool of destruction, and when unleashed, not even the gods could stop her. If Ra had not intervened, mankind would have ceased to exist. Her power is limitless, her rage unstoppable, and her thirst for blood insatiable. She represents the thin line between protection and annihilation. A goddess who could just as easily heal the sick as she could burn an empire to the ground. Even today, her name is spoken with awe and fear. Ares, the god of war and carnage. In the vast pantheon of Greek mythology, Ares stands apart as a god who embodies the raw, untamed essence of war. Unlike his sister Athena, who represents strategy, wisdom, and the calculated aspects of battle, Ares is chaos incarnate. He does not fight for justice, glory, or even victory. He fights because he loves it. He is the god of slaughter, bloodlust, and merciless violence. Where Athena ensures wars are won, Ares only cares that they happen. His name was enough to strike terror into the hearts of mortals. Warriors who prayed to Athena sought her guidance for tactical victories. Those who invoked Ares, however, were praying for pure destruction. They did not ask for protection. They asked for their enemies to be obliterated. And Ares was more than willing to answer. Ares' insatiable hunger for battle made him one of the most dangerous gods in Greek mythology. Unlike Zeus, who commanded the skies with wisdom, or Poseidon, who ruled the seas with divine authority, Ares had no interest in ruling anything. He had no kingdom, no responsibilities, no divine justice to uphold. His only desire was to fight, to kill, and to bathe in the blood of the fallen. Ares was not a god who led armies to victory. He was a god who enjoyed the chaos of war itself. His presence on the battlefield did not bring strategy or discipline, it brought madness and death. His mere arrival incited bloodshed as warriors lost themselves in a frenzy, hacking away at their enemies with no concern for survival. Unlike Athena, who fought with intelligence, Ares relied on brute force and sheer aggression. He did not care who won or lost. As long as the battlefield was drenched in blood, he was satisfied. This recklessness made him feared by mortals and despised by gods alike. One of Ares' most infamous appearances in Greek mythology was during the Trojan War. This war, immortalized in Homer's Iliad, was a decade-long battle between the Greeks and the Trojans, and Ares was right in the middle of it. Ares chose to fight on the side of the Trojans, not out of loyalty, but because he loved the thrill of war. He had no real stake in the conflict. He simply wanted to witness and revel in the carnage. When he entered the battlefield, the entire course of the war shifted. His sheer presence turned the tide, sending the Greeks into a panic-stricken retreat. He cut down warriors without mercy, spreading terror through their ranks. But Ares' recklessness also made him vulnerable. Unlike Athena, who used strategy and patience, Ares relied purely on brute force. His love for bloodshed blinded him to danger, and this flaw ultimately led to his downfall. During the Trojan War, Ares faced his greatest humiliation. Athena, his arch-rival and complete opposite, saw his reckless rampage and decided to intervene. In a decisive moment, she helped the Greek warrior Diomedes, guiding his spear straight into Ares' body. The god of war howled in pain, his divine blood spilling onto the battlefield. Defeated and humiliated, Ares fled the battlefield, retreating to Olympus in disgrace. This moment was unprecedented. Ares, the god of war, had been wounded by a mortal. His arrogance had been his downfall, proving that sheer rage is no match for intelligence and discipline. It was one of the rare instances in mythology where a god of war was bested in combat. Despite his failures, Ares remains one of the most feared gods in history. But what makes him truly terrifying is not his power, it's what he represents. Ares is not just a war god, he is war itself. He embodies the most primal, savage aspects of battle. He represents the moment when soldiers lose all reason, when the thirst for blood outweighs survival, when men become beasts on the battlefield. His power is not strategy or victory. His power is violence, chaos, and destruction. Even the Greeks, a culture that prided itself on military excellence, despised him. Unlike Athena, who was honored as a goddess of wise warfare, Ares was seen as a brutal, thoughtless force. He was necessary but unwelcome. The Greeks worshipped him out of fear, not admiration. In many myths, even his fellow Olympians looked down on him. Zeus himself called Ares the most detestable of all the gods. His own mother Hera often mocked him for his failures. He was seen as a disgrace, a brute, a fool blinded by rage. The only deities who truly respected Ares were Eris, goddess of strife, and Thanatos, god of death, beings who, like him, thrived in misery and destruction. Yet, for all his flaws, Ares was still a force to be reckoned with. He was a god whose presence alone could turn soldiers into bloodthirsty killers. He was the driving force behind every war, every massacre, every battle where logic and reason were abandoned. What makes Ares one of the deadliest gods in history is that he never truly loses. Even when he is humiliated, even when he is mocked, war never stops. Every battlefield, every conflict, every act of violence feeds his power. He is not a god who seeks dominance or control. He is a god who thrives in chaos. He does not need temples, prayers, or offerings. As long as men continue to kill, Ares remains strong. Unlike other gods who fade when their followers disappear, Ares is immortal in a way no other deity is. As long as there is war, he will always exist. And that is why Ares is feared. Not because he is wise, not because he is victorious, but because he is inevitable. No matter how much humanity may strive for peace, no matter how advanced civilization becomes, war is always there. And as long as there is war, Ares will be watching, smiling, waiting for the blood to spill once more. Throughout history, these gods weren't just figures of legend. They were forces of nature, embodiments of chaos, destruction, and raw power. They were feared not just by mortals, but even by other gods. Each of them represented something terrifyingly inevitable. Whether it was the annihilation of the universe, Shiva, the uncontrollable wrath of death and time, Kali, the inescapable fate of the underworld, Hades, the unstoppable rampage of war and plague, Sekhmet, or the bloodthirsty carnage of the battlefield, Ares. These were not deities that mortals sought mercy from. They were deities that mortals feared to anger. What makes them truly deadly is not just their power, but their purpose. Unlike gods who protect and nurture, these deities exist to destroy, to reset, to bring death and chaos where necessary. Some, like Shiva and Kali, act as cosmic forces, ensuring the universe follows its natural cycle of destruction and rebirth. Others, like Hades, serve as the final gatekeepers of existence, ensuring no one escapes their destined end. Then there are those like Sekhmet and Ares, who thrive on war, revel in bloodshed, and bring death wherever they walk. But now, the real question is, which of these gods do you think is the most terrifying? Is it Shiva, the destroyer of worlds? Kali, the goddess who loses herself in bloodlust? Hades, who owns every soul for eternity? Sekhmet, who nearly wiped out humanity in a killing frenzy? Or Ares, the eternal force of war and violence that never dies? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the deadliest gods in history, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more mind-blowing mythology content. We've only scratched the surface of the world's most terrifying legends. There's so much more to uncover. So stick around, because the myths only get darker from here.